Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's online worship service. I'm Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom, and I'm honored to serve as First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's senior minister. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all that you're carrying with you today and all your heart longs to set down. I welcome you into our worship service this morning by inviting you to repeat our mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Our opening words this morning are from the prophetic Octavia Butler in her novel Parable of the Talents, the second book of the Earthseed Chronicles. She writes, God is change. God is infinite, irresistible, inexorable, indifferent. God is trickster, teacher, chaos, clay. God is change. Beware. God exists to shape and to be shaped. In the novel, Butler's character goes on to reflect, this is a terrifying God, implacable, faceless, yet malleable and wildly dynamic. I suppose it will soon be wearing my mother's face. Her second name was Oya. I wonder whatever possessed my Baptist minister grandfather to give her such a name. What did he see in her? Oya is the name of a Nigerian Orisha, a goddess of the Yoruba people. In fact, the original Oya was the goddess of the Niger River, a dynamic and dangerous entity. She was also the goddess of the wind and of fire and death, more bringers of great change.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Tomchek Carlson, and I'm the Minister of Religious Education here at First Church. The story I have for you today is called A List. It's a frog and toad story by Arnold Lobel. One morning, Toad sat in bed. I have many things to do, he said. I will write them all down on a list so that I can remember them. Toad wrote on a piece of paper, a list of things to do today. Then he wrote, wake up. I have done that, said Toad, and he crossed out, wake up. Then Toad wrote other things on the paper. There, said Toad, now my day is all written down. He got out of bed and had something to eat. And then Toad crossed out, eat breakfast. Toad took his clothes out of the closet and put them on. Then he crossed out, get dressed. Toad put the list in his pocket. He opened the door and walked out into the morning. Soon Toad was at Frog's front door. He took the list from his pocket and he crossed out, go to Frog's house. Toad knocked at the door. Hello, said Frog. Look at my list of things to do, said Toad. Oh, said Frog, that is very nice. Toad said, my list tells me that we'll go for a walk. All right, said Frog, I am ready. Frog and Toad went for a long walk. Then Toad took the list from his pocket out again. He crossed out, take walk with Frog. Just then a strong wind blew the list right out of Toad's hand. The list blew up high into the air. Help, cried Toad. My list is blowing away. What will I do without my list? Hurry, said Frog. We will run and catch it. No, shouted Toad. I can't do that. Why not? said Frog. Because, wailed Toad, running after my list is not one of the things I wrote down on my list of things to do. Frog ran after the list. He ran over hills and swamps, but the list blew on and on. At last, Frog came back to Toad. Oh, I am sorry, gasped Frog, but I could not catch your list. Blah, said Toad. I can't remember any of the things that were on my list of things to do. I will just have to sit here and do nothing, said Toad. Toad sat and did nothing. Frog sat with him. After a long time, Frog said, Toad, it's getting dark. We should go to sleep now. Go to sleep, shouted Toad. That was the last thing on my list. Toad wrote on the ground with a stick, go to sleep. And then he crossed out, go to sleep. There, said Toad. Now my day is all crossed out. I'm glad, said Frog. Then Frog and Toad went right to sleep. The end.
Thank you, Kimberly, for that lovely story. My dear ones, because of the unprecedented times in which we are living and the ways that all of our lives are touched by the grief and loss of this global coronavirus pandemic, we're continuing our pandemic practice this year of lighting the COVID candle for any of our members who have had a loved one die during this period, either from COVID or from another cause. If you've had a loved one die from coronavirus, from COVID-19, or from another cause during this time, and you'd like the COVID candle lit for them during our Sunday worship, please contact one of the ministers. Yesterday, we passed a terrible milestone in the COVID-19 pandemic. We now have had more than 200,000 deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. I'm sorry to say that in the last week, we've also had the death of a loved one of one of our members. Jean Groshek's father, Mariah and Cecilia Groshek's grandfather, Ralph Michael Groshek, died from COVID-19 in Franklin, Wisconsin on September 12th of 2020. He was 84 years old. It is our pandemic practice to light our COVID candle to honor the lives and the deaths of members' loved ones during the pandemic. Today, we light our candle in honor of the 200,000 people in the United States who have lost their lives to COVID-19, and in honor of our own Ralph Michael Groshek. As we enter into a time of meditation, which will be followed by silence and followed by the seated singing of Spirit of Life, go ahead and find yourself at home in your body. Maybe that means feeling your sit bones touching the seat beneath you. Maybe it means feeling your feet on the floor. Maybe it means feeling your breath moving in and out of your lungs and bringing you into being here and now. Spirit of life and love, Holy One, of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. Ground us and comfort us in this world of chaos and love. Help us remember the joy of connection even as we grieve its loss. Help us be grateful for the love that surrounds and holds us in this moment. As we each make decisions about the next right thing to do, may we remember the past and the present, and let an understanding of the whole guide us towards the future. And today, as our Jewish kin celebrate Rosh Hashanah, the new year, may we remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the second female and first Jewish Supreme Court Justice. May her memory be a blessing. Blessed and inspired, may we turn towards the future with the fire of commitment, burning for a new, ever more beautiful and ever more just world. May it be so.
I'm a big fan of the long, solitary walk. My fondest travel memories are aimless strolls across cities, a late night trek across Paris, or a walk from one end of New York's Central Park to the other. The COVID quarantine has kept me closer to home, but my walks haven't stopped. Now I walk in my own neighborhood or make an outing to a park or a previously unexplored part of the city. But my go-to destination is Lake Park and the Milwaukee lakefront along Lincoln Memorial Drive. I lived in Milwaukee most of my life, so this is pretty familiar territory. But these very unfamiliar times have turned it into a place of insight and discovery. I make this walk an almost daily habit. When I started in April, I sought quiet and solitude. So I walked early in the morning. The rhythm of the waves eased my restlessness and anxiety. The horizon offered a welcome few minutes of stillness. Looking out at the water, I suppose I saw it as a blank slate, an invitation to dream of a world less troubled and more just. One day I ventured out on a Saturday afternoon to a very different lakefront. That was the day that, seeking solitude, I instead found community. I crossed paths with Black Lives Matter protesters carrying placards. I stood a while to hear speeches full of anger, hope, and calls for change. Away from the marches, the horizon was still comforting, but I wasn't alone any longer. The paths were more populated. There were people on the beaches and in the water, and I began to see that the beauty of the lakefront went beyond the wonder of that expanse of water and sky. It was about the people who were drawn to it. The lakefront, after all, is a shared space, that great place on a great lake that invites people from all parts of the community. Unlike the exclusively white suburb I grew up in, and to some extent the homogeneous neighborhood where I live now, the lakefront is a microcosm of the city, teeming with different languages, races, cultures, ages, bodies, and sexualities. The lake still offers quiet comfort for me, but it also gives me the chance in my own quiet way to be a part of the richness of our city. I see the mother in the hijab walking next to her tricycle riding son, the group of Black teens laughing as they careen down the path in a 4-person pedal cart. The sound of different languages, Russian, Spanish, Arabic, the music of many different voices. The connection we share is only acknowledged with perhaps a masked nod or a socially distant wave, but I've come to relish that feeling of a shared space, a community of strangers drawn to the horizon, and a peace and hope that for me, that horizon represents. The people are there for all sorts of reasons, but I like to think that some are there for reasons similar to mine, to take comfort in the serenity, to imagine the possibilities, and to make plans for the work that lies ahead.
Here we are in the wake of another sleepless night, another morning we all hope will never come. From afar I can hear the echo of cries for lost daughters, lost brothers, and lost sons. It's a call to be patient, it's a call to be kind in the face of life's mysteries. Blow, wind, blow, no, I won't stop hoping. Blow, wide open. Here I am, so small, my hands are tiny things. What can I do to be of help at all? Have music, kind words, dollar and a smile. I will give everything I am to keep us all from falling in mystery. Blow, wind, blow, no, I won't stop hoping. Blow, wind, blow, my heart wide open. Let me be the face of change I want to see. Let me be the saving grace that somebody needs when the old wind blows. No, I won't stop hoping. Blow and blow, my heart wide open. Blow, my heart wide open.
Oh, I'm so grateful for that music. When I was in my late 20s, I was at an environmentalist camp with my friend Allison while I was organizing the carbon-free, nuclear-free campaign. We were both there to speak about the dangers of nuclear energy to folks who were primarily focused on climate change. So we had satchels of papers and cardboard presentation materials that we then had to pile high in the middle of wet pup tents in a soggy, rained out camp we hadn't anticipated. The bathrooms were far away, and we were wet and cold at night and awkward and out of place during the day. We were nuclear nerds preaching to the climate choir and struggling to connect with the other people there. I'll admit it, we were a little bit grumpy, despite the joy of being surrounded by people who were as committed to the earth and the well-being of its inhabitants as we were. We slogged through our presentations to young activists who were learning for the first time about the toxic effects of uranium mining and nuclear waste, handing out our semi-soggy papers about the nuclear fuel cycle and its thousands of years of toxicity. That night, as we tromped back towards our wet tents, we caught the telltale scent of fire. The smell came first, and then we heard the noise of voices, which we followed until we saw a blaze. Finally, we felt the fire's heat as we pulled up to the swell of bodies there talking and laughing. Of course, there was a guitar. Someone was telling stories, and we were quickly pulled into the circle. No longer just presenters, no longer the nuclear nerds. Now another couple of humans gathered around the warm blaze of connection. We stayed there for hours, made new friends, told our own stories. With the fire, we were gathered into community in a dark, warm circle of humanity pressing against the soggy night. Two years ago, the California campfire was the deadliest, most destructive fire in California history. Last week, NPR's Morning Edition reported that in that 2018 fire, a woman named Linda Olson lost everything. She and her husband lived in Paradise, California at the time, and they almost didn't make it out safely. When the call to evacuate came, they had time to grab their most important papers and really not much more. Then they got stuck in evacuation traffic, and they barely got out before fire ravaged their town. Some of their neighbors didn't make it and died in the fire. The Olsons, understandably, have PTSD from that experience. Just the smell of fire triggers it. So after the 2018 campfire, they moved out of the forest and into a big field further away from the fire zone. They even cut down all the trees in that field and expanded their driveway to make sure that emergency vehicles could get in and out of it. They did what they could to reduce their fire risk living in California. Still, since their move 2 years ago, the Olsons have had to evacuate from fire 3 more times. Last week, they ran from the California Bear Fire that burned down homes and killed 10 people in the town next to their new and supposed to be safer home. In California and the rest of the West, major fire disasters are likely to be increasingly regular events. Fall fire season is always difficult, but this year has been the worst, and it tops a decade of the worst. According to the Los Angeles Times, 7 of the 10 most destructive fires in California's history have burned in the last 5 years. The 2020 fire season in California has shattered every previous fire record, and there are still 6 to 8 more weeks of peak fire season. Fire. It can beckon a warm circle of humanity, and it can destroy. Like many things in this world, fire is neither good nor bad. Its consequences change with its context. Even forest fires can be negative or positive events for forests and for humans. Historically, natural forest fires have been a regular part of a forest's life. They cleared out old, dead vegetation, and they contributed to a forest's renewal. However, when natural forest fires were prevented by mid-20th century human management techniques that deemed all forest fires bad, too much fuel accumulated in the forest and built into much bigger and sometimes catastrophic forest fires. While forest management wisdom changed at the end of the 20th century, now other human-caused factors in forest fires have also changed, not least of them climate change. Climate change has also increased the amount of fuel in the forest by increasing the dryness of organic matter like shrubs and small trees, making it burn more quickly and more easily in fire. According to a 2016 article in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, John T. Abitzaglu of the University of Idaho and A. Park Williams of Columbia University, quote, human-caused climate change caused over half of the documented increases in fuel aridity since the 1970s and human-caused climate change doubled the cumulative forest fire area since 1984. Renewal by fire. In the chilly and sometimes soggy fall of the Midwest, it's easy to think of a campfire that warms us so we can gather with people outside as weather gets colder. But most of us also know someone who lives out west and is facing apocalyptic levels of fire that are destroying homes and lives, making it once again hard to breathe. And then, of course, there's the metaphorical fire of dismantling systems of supremacy, when people who are fed up with oppression wonder if white supremacy is so deeply embedded in our current system that we should just burn it all down. In nature, there are some times when fire is healthy, when deconstruction is part of the cycle of life, when forest renewal comes from fire. And there are other times when fire is catastrophic, even apocalyptic, and destroys life rather than renews it. How do we know when deconstruction is necessary for the health of the system versus when a fire has too much fuel and will turn into catastrophe rather than renewal? Liberal religion does not believe that an absolute moral law was set down however many thousand years ago and exists for all time, but rather, liberal religion believes that human beings should understand religion and make moral judgments in the context of the best wisdom of our time and place. Sometimes fire brings renewal. Sometimes it brings catastrophe. We consider morality, we consider the fire in the larger picture of its contexts. We ask questions like, what are the fire's effects? Does the fire increase the possibility for life? Does it increase flourishing? Does it bring connection, renewal, love? But we not only consider the effects of the moral issue, we not only consider the effects of the fire, we also look at its causes. Where did the fire come from? What fueled it? Why was that fuel there? We think about the history of the fuel, of the fire, of the moral issue. We consider moral issues in their whole context in order to understand them. Sometimes, when I think about the fires in Kenosha and in other parts of the country, I wonder if white supremacy, if 4 centuries of racist oppression and the exhaustion of the COVID-19 pandemic that exacerbates already embedded oppression just left too much fuel on the table. Other times, when I think about white nationalism rising to the highest levels of our government, when I think about babies in cages and young men shot in the back in front of their children and women being sterilized without their consent, I think maybe the system is the fuel that burns itself down. What I know is that with all the fuel factors on the table, fuel factors that have already been there, that have been there for centuries, climate change is only going to keep making that fuel drier and more flammable. We're entering our third pandemic of 2020 now with the fires in the West. And sadly, I doubt we're done. I don't think we can just white knuckle it through COVID until things return to normal. I think that normal is gone. The world is changed and it will be changing evermore. I don't mean that as a fatalist statement. I mean it as a clear call to adaptation. We need to adapt strategies for a world that will keep changing along with the climate and the population. We need to develop trusting and authentic relationships across difference in order to weather the coming storms together. We need solid, regular spiritual practices so our souls have the capacity to ride the wild waves that are here and coming. We need to be able to make good moral decisions, understanding and evaluating them in their larger context. And so we keep developing our theology, that way of making meaning of individual events in the larger context of the world and how it works, expanding our horizon by listening across lines of difference so we have a better picture of that world from a multiplicity of perspectives. When I look out at the horizon and see possibilities lying at its edge, I know we will need all these skills to meet those possibilities. The fire that burns within me calls me to follow the voices advocating for deeper justice in these changes. That fire commits me to work for greater love and to make the possibilities of hope real through the work of my hands and heart, doing the small piece I can to turn the wheel towards renewal rather than destruction. Yesterday, the Reverend Ashley Horan and You the Vote sent out a message to us on the devastating death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. In it, Reverend Horan quoted Reverend Leah Ungiri, who's both Jewish and a Unitarian Universalist minister, when Reverend Ungiri shared her ideas of the blessings of Justice Ginsburg's life that we might reap even as we mourn. Blessings that Justice Ginsburg bestowed on us through her tireless and inspiring commitment to justice. Reverend Ungiri called those blessings the unfaltering dedication and integrity that Justice Ginsburg brought. She also said that one of her blessings was being sure of oneself and one's values, even when one is singled out as being different from others around them. And finally, she said that Justice Ginsburg blessed us by embodying the iron spirit of staying the course, faithful and fierce for however long our earthly journey lasts. May we carry the spirit of Justice Ginsburg's blessings on. May we carry her work on as we manifest love in the struggle for justice this day and every new day. May it be so, and amen.
From the light of day's remembrance, hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can be. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
It was so wonderful to see the house band. Thank you so much for that song. And thank you to everyone for your generosity during the offertory. As you know, pledges are the core of our congregation's spiritual practice of generosity. We're also grateful for additional gifts to support our ministry and thank everyone out there who have been appreciating this online ministry and supporting it by texting 73256 with the message, "Give to you." Your gifts help us continue to provide this ministry. We also share the plate with an organization every month. Our September Share the Plate recipient is the River West Food Pantry, which comes together around food to relieve hunger, improve lives, and grow community well-being. You can go to their website and give with the note STP from FUSM. You can see all of these options in your live chat now, and they will also live on in the YouTube comment section of this video after worship is over. Thank you so much for giving right now or when you come back to give later. Your support keeps us and our community partners going. Thank you. Our closing words today are excerpted from the poem Coyotes by Mark Jamin. Is the world truly fallen? The coyotes say no. For there's the new moon, there's the Milky Way, there's the rattler with a wren's egg in its mouth, and there's the panting rabbit they will eat. They sing their wild hymn on the dark slope, reading the stars like notes of hilarious music. Is this a fallen world? How could it be? And yet we're crying over the stars again and over the uncertainty of death, which we suspect will divide us forever. But there's that starlit burst of animal laughter. The day has set its fires scattering. The night has risen from its burning bed. Our tears are proof that love is meant for life and for the living. And this chorus of praise from trickster coyote, which the pet dogs of the neighborhood are answering nostalgically, invites our answer too. Is this a fallen world? How could it be? Loved ones, may you love the world in all its grief and its glory today. May the fire of commitment burning for justice and a new and better day burn within you as you manifest love through the work of your heart and your hands. May it be so, and amen.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Whoa, yeah, yeah. 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 We are going.